So, whether we've been doing it through FOIL or through the box method, we should know at this point how to multiply binomials, right? So we multiply all the parts of the first binomial with all the parts of the second binomial to get an answer. If you're doing FOIL, right, you're like first, inside, outside, last. And then you would simplify it if you're able. So this one would come out as 8x squared minus 2x minus 15. If you're using the box method, I'm going to show you the way I learned the box method, but everyone has their own strategies. Here's mine, 2x minus 3 and 4x plus 5. And then I'm going to find, sort of the area inside each. So here I have 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. 5 times 2x is 10x. And 4x times negative 3 is negative 12x. And 4x times 2x is 8x squared. These guys are all x's, so I can combine them together. 8x squared minus 2x minus 15. Two different strategies. We're doing the same thing. But now we're going to swap this to try to go backwards. If we ended up with this quadratic expression, how could we undo that foiling we did to get back to the factors? So just as a reminder, a quadratic equation has the general form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is not equal to 0. And it makes a parabola shape. So kind of in general, like this, it could be upside down. It could be stretched really wide. It has a lot of those transformations can happen on it, but it has this general shape of that U. So imagine that we were first given x squared plus 4x plus 3, and we're trying to go backwards to find the factors of this expression. If we're trying to figure out what did someone FOIL to get this as an answer, I'm going to show you two different ways. We're going to start with the box, though. So what I want is to have x squared and 3, and then I want these two values to add up to 4x. So if I'm trying to go backwards, I'm trying to figure out what did I multiply to get these things. The only way to multiply to get x squared would be an x and an x, or I suppose an x squared and a 1, but that 1 doesn't sound like it's going to be a lot of help. And then for 3, the only way to multiply that is 1 and 3. I am going to put a 1 here and a 3 here, but please note, this was just me like guessing. It doesn't particularly matter if I put a 3 here or a 1 here yet. And we'll see what happens if it does matter. So to see what goes here, now that I have guessed that there's a 3 here and an x here, I multiply those to say this is 3x. And in this box, I'm going to do the same thing and multiply 1 and x. And I'm going to double check, do these add up together to give me 4x? And luckily, they do. I'm in good shape so far. So how do I find what I actually just factored to get my x squared plus 4x plus 3? I'm going to look on the outside of my box at I have up here x plus 1, and down on the side I have x plus 3.
So that was our box method. If you have used the diamond method before, we can also do that one. It is similar to the AC method, which we'll see in a minute, and here's why. In the diamond method, up here, we are going to put A times C, and down here, we're going to put B, and right now you're like, Lindsay, what are these? What are A, B, and C? And just as a reminder, every quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c. So here, a is whatever number is being multiplied with x squared, and for us it's just 1. And here's our c. So we're going to go 1 times 3 is just 3. And then our b is this one right here, which is 4. And now what you do with the diamond is you're looking for two numbers that multiply to 3 but add up to 4. And with this one, it's relatively easy, right? It's 1 and 3. There's not a lot of other options. And now we can say that x plus 1 times x plus 3 is going to multiply out to our x squared plus 4x plus 3. But I don't want you to get carried away with thinking that this 1 and 3 are always going to pop in quite as easily as they just did. That worked really well because we had a 1 as our a. As we'll see, it will get more complicated. So we've got x squared plus 15x plus 50, and I'm going to show you this a couple ways. So the box method, I'm going to start with putting my x squared here and my 50 here, and I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 50 that are going to help me make these two add up to 15, 15x. So I might try 2 and 25, but if I try that, I'm going to notice, oh no, that actually adds up to 27. So that's not going to do it. I might try 5 and 10, which is definitely going to multiply to 50. And then, ooh, that's looking good for me. If these are my x's to make x squared, then right here I'm going to have 10x and 5x. 5x plus 10x is going to get out to my 15x. That's looking great. So my factors are x plus 10 and x plus 5, which then I can just write like this. X plus 10 times x plus 5. If we're doing our diamond method, multiplying, adding, I need something that multiplies to 50. That's my A times C. And something that adds up to 15. That's my B term. And this is when, again, I would essentially be doing the same thing, but I am testing here. I'm like, does 2 and 25 work? No. Does 5 and 10 work? Yes. So then I can say x plus 5. Oop, not 15. X plus 5 and x plus 10. Now, one other way that we do this is not quite the diamond. It's still the AC method, but it's just sort of written a different way. So I'm going to start with finding my A times C. Remember that we have a 1 here, so 1 times 50 is 50. And then I'm just going to write out all of the ways I can multiply two numbers to get 50. 1 times 50, 2 times 25, 3 doesn't work, 4 doesn't work, 5 times 10, 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work, 8 doesn't work, 9 doesn't work, and then I'm back to 10. So these are all three of my possible ways to multiply to 50. And then I'm looking back at my B, and I'm saying, which of these are going to add up to 15? And now I can see that it is these right here, that when I take them together, I'm going to have 5 plus 10 equals 15. So those are my helpful factors of 50. We are going to apply these now in a slightly harder problem. Let's keep going. So now I've got x squared minus 2x minus 3. Again, if I do the box, I'm starting with my x squared, which means these have to both be x. And down here I have a negative 3. And now I need two numbers that multiply to negative 3, but are going to add up to negative 2. So just testing out, let's do 3 and negative 1. And actually I should really color code these to make sure that you know that I'm guessing right now. So 3 times x is 3x. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. But careful, are those adding up to negative 2x? No, they are not. So that was not my best guess. I mean, it was a great guess, but it wasn't the right guess. So let's come on back and do a different one. Instead of positive 3 and negative 1, we'll try negative 3 and positive 1, and we'll run it again. Negative 3x, 1x. When I add these up, I get negative 2x, which is just what I wanted. Fantastic. So I've got x plus 1 and x minus 3. If we were doing the AC method, there's not that many ways to get negative 3, so I would just write them like this. and look for which one adds up to -2. It's this one. And of course, if you prefer to see it in the diamond, it's the same strategy. It's just maybe helping you think about it that way, especially for those of you that maybe did it this way in your middle and high school classes. The diamond can be a helpful way to visualize it. But truly, these are all great strategies. You can use anything you like. So just one more practice like this before we keep on complicating it. We need two numbers that multiply to -5 but add up to +4. Hopefully you can already imagine what those might be. I'm going to do the box because that's my favorite. X squared and -5. Two numbers that multiply to -5 but add up to +4. I'm thinking my 5 needs to be positive and my 1 needs to be negative. Let's check it. 5x, -x. Together, that's going to make 4x. Fantastic. So, x minus 1 and x plus 5. You can use a different method, of course. You can use your diamond or your AC. And find which one is going to add up to 4. +4, it's this one. So now your answer is going to be x minus 1 and x plus 5. Now, we are into an important distinction here. Our a is not equal to 1. And when a is not equal to 1, different things start to happen. So I'm going to again show you same methods, but it gets a tiny bit more complicated. If you love the box, you can keep doing the box. But what we're going to need to do is a bit more guess and check. So I'm going to try a 3x times x to get x squared. I don't feel like there's too many other ways to do that. And now I need to figure out two ways to multiply to get -4. Two numbers to multiply to get -4. And I'm just going to try 2 and -2. Yeah, that seems fine. I could also try 1 and 4 with one of those being negative. Let's test this out, see what happens. 3x times -2 is -6x. 2 times x is 2x. Looking at that, ooh, I don't like it. It's adding up to -4x, and I know I want it to be positive. So, I've got a lot of ways I could change my guess and checking. I could change these to being 1 and 4, or, since that's like really close, it's just like positive, -4 when I wanted it to be positive, I'm going to try just changing where the -2 is. Before I had -2 up here, so I'm just going to swap it to down here. So let's try that. 3x times 2, 6x. -2 times x, -2x. Ooh, hoo, hoo, I love that. Those guys are adding up to +4, which is what I want. So now I'm looking on the outside, and my factors are x plus 2 times 3x minus 2. All right, how do we do this if you hate the box method? If you are loving the diamond, you're going to keep doing the diamond. You're going to multiply your a and c. 3 times -4 to make -12. And you're going to put your b here. And you're going to look for two numbers that multiply to -12 but add up to 4. If you prefer to list out your options, like this AC method, same thing. Whichever way you prefer to do it. Watch me do way too many of these, okay? 2 and 6 and 2 and -6 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4. And now I'm going to look through these to figure out which one adds up to +4. I see it right here, but oops, that was not the highlighter. I see it right here, but I can't now just say Because you'll remember that before we're like, okay, done. It's x minus 2, x plus 6. Look at how that does not work. The x times x would give me x squared instead of the 3x squared that I need. And the negative 2 times 6 would give me negative 12 out here instead of the negative 4 that I need. So we can't just plop them in like we were doing before. We have to now use factoring by grouping. And if you are not comfortable with factoring by grouping, make sure you go do some practicing to get comfortable with it. So I'm going to take that same expression I had, but I'm going to break the 4x into these two parts. So I'm going to break it into negative 2x plus 6x. The rest is coming along for the ride. And now I'm going to factor by grouping. I think 2 is all I can take out over here. Fantastic. My 3x minus 2's match. And I've got 3x minus 2 times x plus 2, which is the same thing I had over here. Fantastic. Just different ways of doing the same thing. And keep in mind, if you were doing the diamond, you're really doing the same thing we just did with AC. You find negative 2 and 6 to go here, but then you still have to write it out to do factoring by grouping if A does not equal 1. So here's another one where A does not equal 1. Let's get into it. My box method. Negative 5 here, 2x squared here. I don't know, 2x and x, why not? Now negative 5, I don't know. Let's try a negative 5 and a positive 1. So I've got x and negative 10x. That is definitely not going to get me negative 3. That's not going to add up to negative 3. So let's try, what if we just swap the signs of these? If we make this positive 5 and negative 1, now I've got 10x minus x. Nope, that's 9x. I still do not love it. All right. So my other option is to switch where these 5s and these 1s are. So let's do that. Let's put my 5 here and my 1 here. And I don't know, we'll make the 1 negative. 5 times x is 5x. Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. Oh man, we're close, but still no cigar. I've got 5x minus 2x. This is the part where you have to not give up, friends. A lot of us want to give up when we're guessing and checking. And we don't give up. Stick with your own self there, because you can get it. But sometimes when you do guess and check, it does take longer, right? So here we go with negative 5x and 2x, and at last, that's going to add up to negative 3x. Fantastic. So my answer I know is going to be 2x minus 5 times x plus 1. So if you hated all of that, then you're coming over to the AC method or the diamond to find your number. Remember, A times C, we've got negative 10. And we're going to find the ways we can multiply to 10, to negative 10. There's not too many ways. So we're going to test these out and see which one adds up to negative 3. We can see it right here. And now we're going to factor by grouping. So this one has less guess and check, but sort of more work. Do you know what I mean? Like, guess and check sometimes just works on the first go when you're like, amazing, that worked so well, I'm so happy. And other times it extremely does not, and it takes a lot of guesses. So you just have to decide, would you rather sort of do the algorithmic way where it's going to maybe be more steps, but it'll always get you your answer without you having to guess and check? Or do you like rolling the dice on a guess and check? Because you can. You always can. Now, the other thing that you can do, if you like the box, but you don't like guess and checking for all that time, is you can combine the box and the AC method. Put your 2x squared and your negative 5 in. Go to your AC method, find your values, and put those into your box, on the inside of your box. So now I'm going to put 2x in. I'm going to put negative 5x in. And now I'm going to build my outsides by finding my greatest common factor of each of these rows and columns. Like this row, nothing in common at all, so it's better be a 1. But this column has a negative 5 in common. That's my greatest common factor. So now negative 5x divided by negative 5 leaves me just an x here. 2x squared divided by x leaves me a 2x here. And I did get to use the box method without guess and checking because I combined it with the AC method. Pretty snazzy. Okay, this is just a hot tip. If your A is negative, I would factor out a negative number if you can, just to make your life easier. And in this one, we actually have a GCF in all of these that we could simplify by taking out the GCF, because 2 goes into all of these. And just because I want to, I'm going to take out negative 2 and see what I've got left. 12x divided by negative 2 is going to leave me negative 6x minus 7. Now look how much nicer this guy is to factor, right? I need 2 numbers that multiply to negative 7 and add up to negative 6. I can already see that in my head. Maybe you can too. X and negative 7x is going to get me negative 6. So this is becoming negative 2 times x plus 1 times x minus 7. So at any point, if you're like not sure what to do, what method to use, you can always use whatever method you want, to be clear. But when your A equals 1, the box or the diamond or the AC are always going to give you these 2 numbers, and then you're going to write out this times this, right? However you get it, you're going to have a leading x term. It's not going to be a 2x, a 3x, whatever. However, when A is not equal to 1, you will have to write it out after and factor by grouping in order to figure out where that m and n are going to land and where that coefficient or those 2 coefficients are going to be on the x's. So if A is any number but 1, make sure that you factor by grouping so that you can figure out where they're supposed to be and what coefficient is going to go onto the x. Now, I would like to show you a special case before I leave you be on these. So, remembering that quadratics are of the form ax squared plus bx plus c, what is our bx here? What's b? And, I know you can't answer me. I'm just on the internet. So I'll tell you, it's 0. We have no x's. So if we're doing this with the box method, we're trying to find something that's going to add up to 0 in the end between these 2 here. And this is a real mess for the AC method because we have to do 64 times 9, which is an enormous, horrible number, negative 576. And I mean, sure, I can start trying to factor that. Let's see what happens. 288, 144, 6 and 96, 8 and 72, 12 and 48, and we're just going on and on and on. None of these are we going to be able to add up to make 0. But this 12 and 48 is giving me an idea. I'm going to try 24. Oh ho ho, 24 times 24 is 576. So I could put negative 24x here and 24x here and now do my GCF. Or if I had been guessing and checking, I might have just been looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 64 to put here and here. That might have gone faster than me for me than the AC method. But anyway, coming here to my GCF, looking at what goes into both negative 24x and negative 64, I'm going to put negative 8 here. And that means then negative 24x divided by negative 8 is going to give me a 3x here. Doing the same and doing the same. I can see that my two factors are 3x minus 8 times 3x plus 8. And hopefully you notice these two look so similar to each other. The only difference is one was plus and the other was minus. So this is actually a special case. If when you see it as the expression you recognize it, you don't have to do things like factor 576. You hopefully can notice that it is something squared minus something squared. Whenever you see that, you know that it's going to factor to that a plus b times that a minus b. And that's only when you have something squared minus something squared. We do not have any nice rule for this. This is a whole other situation. Don't think you're going to have a nice trick. There's no nice trick. All right. Our last one. You will sometimes see these and people get scared with the X's and the Y's and they're worried. And I don't want you to worry, although I understand the impulse. I want to show you why you don't need to panic. Right here we've got 6x squared. Right here we've got negative 15y squared. And whether you want to guess and check or use the AC to figure out how to break this guy up, we're still multiplying these coefficients. And we're looking for something that's going to add up to 1, negative 1. So don't actually stress too much about the x and the y yet. Worry about your coefficients to start, and then we'll worry about the x's and the y's later. So I think negative 10 and 9 is going to do it for me. And now watch what we're going to need. We know these have to add up to negative 1xy. So these are xy's. And now we're going to take out our GCF on each row. So here I can take out a negative 5, and I can also take a y out of each of these. When I take negative 15y squared and I divide by negative 5y, I get left up here with 3y. And I'm just going to keep going through like that. I've got 3x here and 2x here. So my answer is going to be 2x plus 3y times 3x minus 5y. It was really not all that different if it had been 2x plus 3 times 3x minus 5. But sometimes those y's scare people. So don't be scared. Remember, you're still just worrying about those coefficients while you're guessing checking or doing the AC method or doing the box or even doing the diamond, whichever way you like to look through them. So when you are coming to a quadratic, just coming back here for a minute, remember, if your first number is a 1, pick any method you like, and as soon as you find your two numbers that multiply to C and add up to B, you've got it. You just write, x plus one of them and x plus the other one of them. Those m and n or whatever you want to call them. When a is not equal to 1, you can use your box method to guess and check. You can use your diamond or your AC method, but you have to factor by grouping you can't just use those two numbers because we have to figure out where, like if this was a 6x squared, we have to figure out, is this a 2x and a 3x? Or is this a 6x and an x? And we are going to have to figure out where, like, whatever these numbers are, where they're going to go, which one's positive, which one's negative, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you're factoring by grouping if your a is not equal to 1. And that is factoring quadratics.